Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Wilson, and I am your guide here at Simple Scrapper. I want to welcome you to this week's episode of Simple Scrapper Live, my weekly video broadcast, kind of a talk show format where we dig into one topic a week and talk all about scrapbooking and keeping it practical and purposeful inside of your life. I know many of you here will be watching in the replay because today is the 4th of July here in the United States. And I want to wish all of you a very happy holiday. For those of you who are watching live, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with me for this broadcast. If you're watching live on Crowdcast, you're in the best place to interact with your peers and to submit questions and chat with your fellow participants. It looks like we do have quite a small crowd today, and that is something that I expected. If you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, one thing to note for the future is to always look for that Crowdcast link so you can RSVP and join live with your fellow scrapbookers. Today, I wanted to talk about how to make event scrapbooking more meaningful when you're doing it year after year. And I wanted to do that today for the 4th of July because I know there's so many different holidays, big and small, throughout the year that are part of the rituals and traditions that we celebrate. These are part of the fabric of our lives and some of the most important ways that we connect with our family members over time. But as scrapbookers, we know that the pictures can be a little bit repetitive. And how do you make this year's 4th of July or this year's birthday, how do you make it different from last year's? And so that's what I want to dig into today with you guys. Before I get started, I want to point out for those of you on Crowdcast, there's a big yellow button or green button that says this is sponsored by the Simple Scrapper membership. The membership is our warm-hearted, supportive community of more than 500 scrapbookers who love this hobby as much as you do and want to encourage each other to keep moving forward. There's a wealth of resources and tools, but I think really the heart of it is the support that I and the fellow members and my team provide everyone to keep moving forward, to keep creating, to stay motivated, to stay energized, and to continue having fun in this hobby. So I hope you'll check it out if you haven't already. For those of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, you can find that at simplescrapper.com/join. All right, let's dig in for today. So I have 4 different kind of areas I want to cover. I want to talk about 3 questions that you can ask to draw out deeper meaning in your pages. And these go really for all types of pages, not just event pages, but I think they're particularly helpful when you're trying to figure out how to scrapbook an event in a more meaningful, a deeper, or more interesting way than previous years. I want to talk about 3 ways to design a more interesting event layout, how to make it visually appealing, particularly when you have a lot of photos. I want to share 3 types of photos you might consider not putting on your event scrapbook pages. Ooh, I'm gonna see, excuse me. Excuse me, sorry about that, guys. And then finally, I want to share 3 different shots that you can take to add more depth to your story. Because the meaning and the richness that you add to your scrapbook pages really starts from the time that you pick up your camera to take a photo all the way through the actual creative process. All right, so let's start with those questions. The first one is to think about, how is this year different? And not about the particular event, because it may be practically the same. But think about, okay, what are the subtleties that are different about this specific event? And then even more importantly, how are our lives different this year? What's the context? What's going on in the world? What's going on in our family? What's going on for individuals that make this year a little bit different? And you can use that lens to tell the story of the holiday. You also can really look at, what does this event mean to my family? Is it a particular milestone? Is this a tradition every year? How does this fit into your family's story, whether that's your immediate family or your extended family? I know last night we went to a fireworks display in a small town near us, and we joined up with friends of ours who were connecting with a lot of their family members that we hadn't met before. And that's because they all come in out of town every year for the 4th of July. And I found that's the 4th of July is one of their family holidays. And so book, the 4th of July, it's not just how much you appreciate this opportunity or you don't appreciate this opportunity, but whatever context you have with your family story. And then finally, how does this event make you feel? And that could be, how does it make you feel every year? Are you reminded of certain things? I know that I feel particularly nostalgic when I see veterans because my grandfather served in the Army. Or how does this particular event this year make you feel? And so thinking about you and asking yourself, why is this important to me? And what things bubble up for you can make your storytelling on the layout a lot more interesting. All right, let's move on to design. So designing a layout when you have a lot of photos, because I'm just going to assume here that maybe you have a lot of photos of an event. Or it could be the case, I know today that I've only taken a couple photos so far. And that's because that I have learned how to choose representative photos. Because I know that I'm going to want to not scrapbook a ton of photos on my page because the complication, the puzzle of trying to fit so many photos on a page doesn't work well for me. I find it frustrating. So I'm always looking for what photos kind of signify the major events of the day, the types of people that were there. What events can be just kind of those flags that you plant so that you can tell the rest of the story in your words and that you can reference this. A lot of times I think of my scrapbook pages as references for my photo library. It's like the index, a card catalog for my photo library. If I'm going through a scrapbook album, like, oh, we went to this event and it was so fun and here's what it meant to me. And then if I want to go find more photos, that's when I know I can go on the computer and find the long catalog of photos for that event or that event over the years. Because I really think of my photo library as the originals, the main archive, and then my scrapbooks are the cherry on top, the fun addition that I get to do that's for me and for celebrating our memories for my family. Shifting gears a little bit, to make your layout more interesting, you can also choose supplies that underscore the meaning. And this goes back to those questions that I was having you ask. Why is this important to you? What's the mood that it creates in your life? How does it make you feel? How does this fit into your family story? To choose color palettes and patterns and embellishments, particularly word art, that connect to that meaning rather than the specific event. Many of you know that I don't necessarily think a lot about, or I don't use a lot of specific theme supplies. And I would say Christmas is the main exception. I don't have Halloween supplies or Thanksgiving supplies or Valentine's Day. I'm thinking about the feelings that I have behind it so that I can connect those on the page. So I want to encourage you to step out of perhaps a comfort zone and think about what this means to you and documenting the photos that way, because that's an immediate way to make this year's page look a little bit different than last year's. And then finally, I also want to encourage you to choose compositions, whether you're designing it yourself or you're using a sketch or a template, to choose compositions that leave plenty of room for your journaling. Because if you're going to be choosing a smaller number of photos that are really representative of your event, you're going to need to supplement that with more words. And I think there's the temptation to try to fit it all on the page and let the photos tell the story, which is a fine way to do it. But if you do want to add that more depth, then I recommend going and leaving room for journaling on the page. All right. Let's move on to photos. We've got two different sections here related to photos, and I'm kind of working backwards here, and that's on purpose. So there's three types of photos that you might consider not adding to your event scrapbook pages. And the first one, it's almost a pet peeve of mine, and that is to include multiple configurations of the posed family photos. You know what I'm talking about, where you have grandma and the grandkids, and then you have the parents and grandma and all the different configurations that you take at a family event. And it's wonderful to have those photos, and some of those pictures are the ones that we all have on our walls and should be framed. But it's not always as interesting to include those on your scrapbook page. I think those are a perfect thing to put in a pocket page next to your layout. But if you're investing the time and energy in creating a scrapbook layout, then it needs to fill you up. And so that's why I recommend not including lots of configurations of family members on the page, because it's going to fill it up before you get a chance to tell your story. I also want to caution you on using pictures of individuals, because if this is an event, we're assuming that there's more than one person there, and it's the relationships between individuals that adds the meaning to the page. So if you're trying to narrow your photos down, narrow it down to ones that have at least two people in the photo and shows them interacting in a natural way. And then finally, I think I tend not to scrapbook the pictures that are the most perfect on an event page. And that's not because I don't appreciate them. It's because I'm either going to print them and frame them or give them away, or I'm going to use them for a different layout that's about that person. And I'm particularly thinking about so many of those, portrait shots you end up taking of family members that end up being your favorite ones because the light was great, you were outside, and those may not fit well on a layout about the event because they're of individuals and they don't add to the story. It doesn't mean they're not beautiful photos. I just feel like they're meant for a different purpose. All right, let's move on to taking the photos. So when you are snapping shots, you probably have sort of a routine, and you may already be trying to be mindful about taking photos and then putting your camera down. But no matter where you are in that process, I want you to think about three things. And that's one, I want you to look for the quiet moments, particularly of people who maybe don't think you're taking their picture. And I'm not trying to be sneaky here, but you should think of yourself as the observer, the external witness to what's happening here. And when you capture those relationships in photos, when somebody's doing something with someone else, those can be some of the most beautiful images I think you'll ever create. I also want to encourage you to make sure you're changing your perspective often. We tend to take pictures right here, right in front of our faces, or holding our phones like this. I want to encourage you to get down low, get up high, zoom way out, zoom way in, but change a little bit of your perspective so that you can create more visual interest in your pages and in your photos. Because I know when we tend to take things at eye level, the pictures look very similar. But when you think about scale and perspective, you can add that interest. And then finally, I don't want you to forget to get yourself in the picture. And whether that's handing the camera to someone else and asking them to shoot for a while, or if it's even taking selfies of yourself at an event, I think it's really important to make sure that you as the memory keeper are part of the story, as well as witnessing it unfold before you. All right, guys, I'm going to check on the questions here. I know I have one here that's a little bit unrelated, but it's super interesting because I can identify with it. And I want to thank all of you who are watching live, as well as those who are watching in the replay. So I have a question here from Linda today, and she says, I've been going through my stash and found a lot of homemade papers, mulberry papers and fuzzy papers. Any suggestion on what to do with them other than throw them out? So I will say I actually have a stash of this myself. My very first, pre-YouTube video is Martha Stewart style, showing how to make homemade paper. And I can't wait I need to digitize that for you guys and show it to you. So I would recommend saving some of it for your scrapbook album, maybe even doing a layout related to the time in your life in which you created homemade paper, that it was maybe a fun diversion for you, or the gifts you created with it. You might consider framing a piece, whether that includes a photo or not, but just framing it as art for your wall. Just maybe choose your favorite one. You might consider, maybe there's one or two small craft projects that you might want to create. And then if you don't feel like it's something you want to have in your stash, then I think it's okay to let it go. But it's okay to also to take that pause and say, okay, what can I do with this? How can I use some of it and then move on from it? And I think that will help you feel more secure in saying, you know, that this was great. I haven't used it in years though, so I probably should just donate it or throw it away. All right, thanks for your question, Linda. So I want to say again, for those of you who are watching now or in the replay, we do these live on Crowdcast every single week. This is a special series that I'm doing called Simple Scrapper Live, and I am so thankful for all of you who watch. If you do want to participate live with your fellow scrapbookers, definitely head over to the Crowdcast link and RSVP for our next event. I am super excited to announce that next week I have a guest host. Our teaching assistant, Kim Edson, will be here while I am traveling to a conference. But there's several events already in the queue, and you can see those at our Crowdcast profile. And that's crowdcast.io/simplescrapper. Again, a happy 4th of July to all of you in the US who are celebrating. Thank you for watching, and keep on scrapbooking. Bye, guys.